Hello everybody, welcome back to Soul Light Radio. Today's Friday the 3rd of August and this is today's news. We have a top story today of more motives emerging for the false flag shooting in Aurora, Colorado. Basically, this comes out of Kerry Cassidy's website of Project Camelot. It's on her blog. She goes on to mention in her article that she had a radio show on the Revolution Radio. Basically, a guest that night with Night Talk and a gentleman called Ghost Walker, who's an ex-Special Forces military from the US, and they were discussing the Aurora shooting. Basically, what it goes on to say is there's now a new motive emerging for the possible reasons why this gentleman was James Holmes was set up as a patsy for this shooting. It goes on to talk about a gentleman called Jack Blood who broke this story originally regarding the background of James Holmes' father and how he factors into the links to the Batman movie scenario and actually how it all factors into the shooting, and it makes more sense as the days go by, guys. So basically this is Mr. Robert Holmes. He's the father of Mr. James Holmes, and he's been captured here by, I believe, CNN, who were trying to, or Fox, who were trying to actually get an interview with him as he was on his way to Colorado after hearing the news his son had possibly taken 12 lives or more in a mass shooting. Now, you may look at this image and sometimes, guys, pictures speak 1,000 words. Basically, this fella looks completely dejected and a lot more going on in his mind and trying to rush towards Colorado to see his son and to find out what's going on. Basically, this man looks like he's got a guilt look on his face. Now, this ties in quite well with how this goes on. So what goes on to say is Robert Holmes, the shooting suspect's father, is a senior lead scientist with a company called FICO, which is an American credit scoring company. He was scheduled to testify in the next few weeks before the US Senate about an investigation about all of the largest bank fraud scandals in world history. This banking fraud threatens to destabilise and destroy the Western banking system. So basically what this man had got onto was, he works for a credit scoring company called FICO, and we see the logo here. Basically what had happened is he'd actually got onto the fact that there was irregularities with the banks, and he was going and he'd investigated this and tied this in to all of the major banks in the world, and basically he suggested, and he was going to actually testify in front of a US Senate, that this actual thing was used and its aim was to destabilise the Western world's economy. Now, we know all about the banking collapse and so on and so forth. We've covered it time and time again in the news and through Ustream and through talks, but this goes a little bit deeper, and as the article goes on to say, Robert Holmes not only uncovered the true intent of the massive LIBOR banking fraud, which is all of this fixing of the interest rates and so on, but his predictive algorithm model also traced the trillions of hidden dollars, and it traced them to the exact bank accounts of the elite class who stole it. In other words, Robert Holmes could name names. Those names would awaken the world to the depth of the government and corporate corruption, which would include members of the Congress in the States, Wall Street, the Federal Reserve in America, the European Union executives, and could even include the US presidential candidates and the British royal family. So what basically we've got here is anyone who's tied in with any form of scandal regarding the banks, which has all been banker controlled run and Vatican run and the British royal family run. This would have actually proved beyond shadow of a doubt this is how far this went. So what you've basically got here is this man was just about to testify to the US Senate about all of the misdemeanors of the world banks, and it just so happens his son ends up having dyed red hair, drugged and brainwashed and manipulated and placed in front of a full audience of Batman fans, who then opens fire with an automatic gun. The way the elite would look at this was it was a double-edged sword. They would have been able to attack the Second Amendment in America, and they also would have been able to stop Mr. Holmes talking, which in fact is actually what took place. So what it goes on to say is the motives for the massacre are to silence the whistleblower Robert Holmes, whose son is now facing a possible death sentence, to influence the upcoming vote in the UN Global Small Arms Treaty, which could result in gun confiscation and disarmament of world citizens. The UN treaty could override national sovereignty and give a licence to federal governments to assert preemptive gun control over state regulatory powers. And basically that's the Second Amendment in America. Now, it also goes on to talk about the high-tech computer programs and algorithms, which is mentioned earlier in the report, predictive algorithm model, which is what Mr. Holmes created. Now, excuse me, this model actually led to him finding out about all of this stuff. But there are other models out there, and the elites use these models as well. So it goes on to further say, the battle of the robots or AI systems. With regard to Batman movie scenario, what I think it's significant not outlined in Jack Blood's analysis, who's the gentleman who initially brought out the motives for the shooting, that the Dark Knight ends up working for the government in the film, and the other who are portrayed as the good guys in order to stop what I took to be a free energy device, which was reconfigured into a fusion reactor, aka subliminally telling the people out there that free energy bad equal nuclear bomb, which is, you know, at the end of the day, something I didn't particularly take from the film, but this is how they work. They work on a subliminal level. Now, what that basically it goes on to say, the article, is the Illuminati would take the position to redirect the public attention away from zero point or free energy, because they don't want it around. Obviously, when you talk about that, you end up talking about no electricity bills, so on and so forth. So there's also a software out there called the Promise software, or Octopus. The investigating journalist that looked into this, which is Dali Casolaro, was found dead in his hotel room, supposedly having strangled himself in a bathtub. So basically, anyone looking into this software or anything else is knocked off. The Promise software story has not reached the mainstream, which is a massive surprise, folks, isn't it? And it's key to understand the development of AI and tracing not only the banking transactions, but for the use of target and profiting at the myriad of other capabilities. Whereas the software that Shooter's father was working on detects financial fraud, it may be considered a potential and very dangerous threat to the Promise system, and quite possibly be able to detail the involvement of the perpetrators in the LIBOR and other banking frauds going on right now. So basically, the Promise software is software which is probably like years ahead of what we think we know right now. It's incredible. It can go into everything. It can change stuff. It can actually predict. It actually can think on its feet. It's akin to something you're talking about Skynet. It really is. So, I mean, that's a talk for another time, but that's just another one of the amazing facts that are now emerging from this Aurora shooting in Colorado. Now, next up, we have another story out of Colorado, believe it or not, which is Denver Airport, and we have a report of a bird strike that leaves a massive hole in the United Airlines jet as it lands at Denver Airport, which is Colorado. So at the end of the day, guys, look, I'm not being too conspiracy theorist here, but you've got the fires in Colorado Springs, you've got NORAD there, you've got the reported transdimensional movements of alien craft and equipment, you've got the Aurora shooting at the cinema there at the Batman movie. You've now got an aeroplane with a massive hole in the front of it due to a duck or a goose flying into it. Now, I'm sorry, folks, but if they make these aeroplanes are made out of paper or cardboard, I'll buy this. But that is steel, and there is no way a goose. There's no feathers. There's no blood. There's no cartilage. There's no carcass. Sorry, there's no remains of the bird at all on this image. So whatever hit this plane was not a bird. It was not biomatter. It was something else, because there is no remains at all of anything. Now, if this bird had smashed into this plane's fuselage as it has into the nose cone, it would have splattered into 1,000,001 pieces. There would have been blood all over the windscreen. There would have been blood all over the plane. There isn't. There's not one bit of blood to be seen on this image. So therefore, this is another lie. This is another cover-up. What the government of America are trying to think. Now, what is the interest with Denver at the moment? And what struck this plane? Was it a weapon? Was it a UFO? What is going on at Denver in America at the moment? And I think we should all keep our eyes peeled to Denver, because there is certainly massive events taking place over there. And now you see the damage to this plane. It's a bird, isn't it? They actually said there was a duck initially. Can you believe that? Moving on to further news. We have a report coming out of the Daily Mail Online stating that an Australian billionaire is about to unveil a real-life Jurassic Park. Now, this story goes back quite a bit. Now, what took place was during a find of the T-Rex dinosaur bones, there was a lady noticed that the bone had been fragmented or fractured, and when she actually looked inside the bone, she found, as you can see at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen there, images of when they actually took the bone apart, there was live cells that were still active within the bone. Now, what they theorised is if they could take the proper measures, they could actually have this as a clonable entity, so there was a real life possibility of a real life Jurassic Park. The article goes on to say Clive Palmer has already revealed plans to rebuild the Titanic, so he's somewhat of an entrepreneur. He's rumoured to be in discussion with Dolly the Sheep Team for a new resort attraction where cloned dinosaurs could roam free. So straight out of the movie. So it goes on to say it could be the most incredible case of life imitating Hollywood. So this is the thing, guys. You know, when you look at the geneticists and the eugenicists and so on and so forth, this is what they're all into. This would be exactly, it'd be a massive boom for trade and industry. You'd find, like, I mean, certainly I'd be very interested in going. So you can imagine the interest in something like that taking place. So it's interesting that we're playing gods at the moment. Next story. US court orders the TSA, which is the Transport Security Administration of America, to explain why it continues to defy the law with implementation and uses of illegal naked body scanners. Now, I'm not too sure how far you guys are along with this one, but basically the TSA in America are notorious for many crimes against the sovereignty of the American people and the freedom there. Basically, what's happening in America is the TSA are using these scanners, which actually are called naked body scanners, or they're irradiating scanners. Basically, they use high levels of radiation, and you can actually picture you naked under your clothes. The TSA officers are known for groping children, adults. I mean, you can see a couple of pictures here where they've got their hands all over children's backsides and so on and so forth. Now, when I did my price training within my vocation of care work, I was taught that you couldn't put your hands on anyone front ways round. You had to use the back of your hand. These officers they're full hands on. They're on the backside area of the child. These images are like, guys, because these were the ones that the only ones I could find out were uncensored. A lot of them had TSA officers with the hands on young girls' undercarriages, shall we say, and young lads' penises and so on and so forth. So what effectively this is employment for paedophiles in America, and this is how the satanic government want things to go, and they encourage all of this. They hide from, like, the government and the courts in the US have ordered that these body scanners are illegal. We won't have them in Europe because of the high levels of radiation. Unfortunately for the American people, they're rolled out in every cinema, and now they're going to be trying rolled out in every bus station and train station as well. So it's one to keep your eyes on, folks, because this could actually, if the American satanic government get their way, their illegal government over there, if the American people don't win the day and win freedom and liberty back, we could see these worldwide. So anyway, they were ordered 12 months ago to stop the usage of these scanners by the US courts, and they haven't done that. Not only that, but they keep implementing them, and they keep rolling them out across America, which is in clear defiance of American law. It's in clear defiance of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It's in clear defiance of the actual court ruling. So, who runs the TSA? Well, effectively, it's the Vatican and the royal family, but basically, that's That's clear to see because they're not responding to any judicial law in America at all. The article is out of Infowars.com. It's struck by a gentleman called Steve Watson. It goes on to say the US Circuit Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia has demanded that the TSA explain why it has ignored a now year-old order to conduct a public comment process with regards to the use of its so-called naked body scanners. The Department of Homeland Security, which oversees the TSA, will have until August 30th to provide a reason why the agency has not held public hearings on guidelines for the body scanners that have been systematically rolled out into airports throughout the nation. So therefore it's another case of, well, we'll do what we want, we're illegal anyway, we've got this far, why don't we just keep going? Okay guys, this would have been top story if it wasn't for the other thing. It should have been top story actually, it's just the way things have felt. This is out of Infowars.com. It reports that the Cuban Missile Crisis may be taken in part 2 as Russia moves nukes into Cuba. Putin has decided, in his infinite wisdom, to move nuclear missiles back into Cuba. Now, if anyone remembers the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, you'll know that Fidel Castro is pictured here with John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy was in charge at the United States. He was the president. Basically, Fidel Castro was the dictator in charge of Cuba, which is a communist regime. Now, basically, what had happened was the Russians on the September 1962, 19 vessels were sent from bound for Cuba, sent from the Black Sea. The 24th of October, they actually turned back around, and what basically takes place is the Russians wanted to. We're actually storing nuclear missiles within the island of Cuba. Now, this led obviously to the Americans going a bit ballistic about pardon the pun. And basically what took place was this culminated in John F. Kennedy making a call to the Russian fleet commander, and basically these boats turned around. So what did John F. Kennedy say to these people to have this missile crisis averted? So we nearly come to nuclear war, guys. We nearly come to nuclear war with this. But as Paul Joseph Watson reports in the Infowars article, it actually goes on to say, a report out of Pravda quotes President Vladimir Putin as saying that Russia has moved strategic nuclear weapons into Cuba in response to the United States' continuing efforts to encircle Russia in Eastern Europe. So, this article actually written by the buyer Lukio, if I'm explaining it, if I'm saying it properly, explains how Russia is revealing its military operations in Vienna, Cuba, and the Seychelles. So it's reviving all of these things. On October 2001, President Vladimir Putin announced that the Lord's Radio Electronics Centre on the island had been shut down as a gift to President George W. Bush on the basis of a promise given by Bush that the US missile defense system would never be deployed in Eastern Europe. However, with the missile defense system under the auspices of NATO now reaching interim operational pardon me, folks, I can't speak today. Now reaching interim operational capability in Europe at the end of May, which is when it actually goes into the operational stage. The promise has been shattered. The Russian Federation has fulfilled all terms of the agreement and even more. I shut down not only the Cuban laws, but also Cameron in Vietnam. I shut them down because I gave my word of honour. I, like a man, has kept his word. What have the Americans done? Right, so basically the Americans have gone back on a promise to Putin and the Russians, and they've started putting missile defense systems in Iraq. They've started putting them in Saudi Arabia. They're just now starting to look at attacking Iran, which borders the bottom half of Russia there, and they are now going to be doing that. So they've gone against this disagreement that they had with this man, and here we go again. So this could turn dirty, guys. It's something that we need to keep our eyes on. Okay. The spirit of Zionism. It does despite is it a representation of Earth's weakening magnetic fields. Now, I've got to thank I will just say JB for this information. I'm sure this person probably wouldn't want his name spoken out on air, but that thanks to him and there are many other people who contribute to this show as well, who send in information or ask me to look into things. So thanks very much, JB, for this information. Basically, this goes on. JB had sent me this image through the email system and through Facebook. And basically, what it's about is this statue called the Spirit of Zionism. Zionism tying in with what's going on with the Jews and that at the moment. This statue is placed at the London Olympics, and what JB was suggesting was this may be representation of our magnetic fields at the moment. So this we have the representation to Zion. You've got 2012, and if you rearrange that quite easily, you see the word Zion. So this also happens with the Beijing Olympics as well. What I did was, the image that JB sent me was a bit too small to have blown up on the screen. So what I've done, I actually got a depiction of our magnetic fields. This image would be more horizontal, really, as it stands, but you can get the gist from this. Basically, what happens is, as our magnetic fields hit, it splits around the Earth, and as our magnetic field shield shows, it's got like a bottom bit, like the bottom half of the top half of the spider, sorry, the bottom half, which would be the thorax area, and then you've got the head, and then you've got the legs coming off it. Now, if you look at what's happening with Solar Cycle 24 at the minute, our magnetic field's actually weakening, and in some cases, if they're to be believed, it's actually got holes in it. Now, any massive event that's going to come from the sun with an X-ray flare, for example, may knock out all communications, and this actually took place in the 1800s when this massive solar flare, during a time of solar cycle coming to the end with the weakening magnetic fields, actually got through to the surface of the Earth. And what it did, fortunately at the time, there was only telegraph wires across the world, and these telegraph wires, or telegram wires should we say, actually just burst into flames. Now, back then that wasn't such a big deal because there wasn't a lot of technology and electronics around, but it would be catastrophic at the moment for the Earth to be hit by one of these X-ray flares. So I tend to keep my eye to the space weather forums and so on and so forth, just to see where we are with these flares. But as they come to the end of a solar cycle, obviously we ramp up to solar maximum, so that could be a factor in this as well. So just looking at this image of how our Earth's magnetic fields are being stretched and pushed and condensed at the moment, and then looking at this Spirit of Zionism statue, I don't think there's much to really, to debate on this one. I think it's fairly obvious that this is a representation of the magnetic fields of the planet Earth. I could be wrong, but that's why we're here. We're challenging, we're looking for truth, and we seek it everywhere. So thanks very much to JB for all of his information and help on that one. Okay guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. I hope everybody out there is well and good. I hope people are starting to wake up to stuff. There's a lot of information coming out per day. Unfortunately, the way things are taking place with this wrapping up the first week of news shows for Soullight Radio, it takes roughly about 3 hours to 4 hours for me to produce these shows each day. What with I have to compile them, I have to put them together, I have to search for the news, obviously. I have to pick out the best stories, the ones that are going to make the most relevance with what the radio show and what the Soullight Initiative tries as a whole. And basically, folks, I'm really incapable of trying to get it down in less than half an hour because there's just so much going on. So what I'm going to try and do is, due to the fact that the formatal effects on my time, so on and so forth, I think I'm probably going to end up just doing the one show a week, which is probably going to go out on the Friday of the week, encompassing everything that goes on through the week, which, if it can condense down to 30 minutes, would be an absolute miracle, because each day is getting 30 minutes right at the moment, and I'm really trying to keep that short as well. So I think that's probably the best thing to do. I might try a bi-weekly one where I do 2 a week. It depends on what's happening, and obviously if there's any major important stuff, I'll report it. In the meantime, rather than the news show, that's just going to go out on the Fridays from now on. What I will do through the week is I will post through our Facebook, I will post through our Soullight Initiative Facebook page and my own personal page. If you would like to keep up to date with the news and what's going on, please send a friend request to Soullight initiative on Facebook. I'll accept you as a friend. Obviously, there's a limit on to how many people I can have on there, so it is a case of just getting in there. And then that I will keep people up to date just with the posting the articles, which doesn't take nearly as much time as putting this radio show together. Just like to thank everyone for the support this week. I know it's been a fairly heavy week, especially my kids who've missed out on a lot of stuff, but I've been trying to do these shows, and God bless them, they've been little angels about it. So I'd just like to say thank you very, very much for your time and effort, guys, for listening to the shows. Take on board what resonates with you and please pass it on to others. We are all in this together. This radio show doesn't go out just for an ego thing. It doesn't go out because I want to be like doing a radio show and putting it on the internet or a keynote presentation. All it's about is all of us connecting humanity, bringing us all back together instead of the dishevelled mess we seem to be in and disconnected as we are today. I urge everybody. This, as I say, it's not just this show's not just about me. It's about everybody. If anyone's got any articles or anything else, please send it to the soul-light at hotmail.co.uk website. Alternatively, you can get in touch through Facebook. We need to all come together now, guys. This is what's happening in the world now. I feel now we're gearing up for something big. So let's all get involved. Let's all try and move forward positively with love and light. Okay? All the very best. Have a fantastic week ahead of you. I hope by next Friday you find you in peace and well. Namaste.